I'm going to go over some baits that I got that I thought were pretty interesting. Some of them you've seen before, some of them you have not seen before. You want to start with this one here. Good old Whopper Plopper. This is in an interesting color. It's called Monkey Butt. Pretty hard color to get. Very popular. Take it out of the box here. I have another one of these lures. If you look at my other videos, you'll see me using these. This is a really good color. It's translucent. It's almost like a trout type color. It has the green olive back and then the pink and blue side, but it's clear. It's pretty much see-through. And then if you look at the tail has like a silver metal flake in it. You can see it shining there. We got the hook off of it. It has a silver metal flake, and of course the tail goes around in the water like this. And that's what makes the action on it. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting color. The other two, I have two other colors of this in this size, and they're both solid colors. One is a bluegill and one is a white. But this is a pretty good color for real clear water. A lot of time with the topwater baits, you don't want the fish to get a real good look at what it is. You just want them to see commotion in the water and come up and hit it out of instinct and not be able to recognize it and see it and say, oh, I'm not going to eat that. That doesn't look right. You just want to be. It's the same principle using a spinner bait. You want to be able to trick him so that he sees something moving real quick and he comes up and gets it. Now the next bait I have here is for spawning time for bass, or post spawn for bass, and it's a 3D scan. It's a Savage Gear. It's a 3D scan. It's a bluegill. As you can see, it looks pretty realistic. This is a slow sink. It does come with a weight, a tuning weight, like a nail weight, so you can balance it perfectly in the water however you want it. This is a 5-inch. There it is. Now, as you can see, I mean, it really does look exactly like a bluegill. It's made from a 3D scan, like the rat I showed you on my last video. Savage Gears, a lot of these baits that are scanned from real animals, mice, fish. There's another one here coming up. I'll show you in a minute. It's got a real good color on it. You can see if I turn it in the light. It has that iridescent color that the bluegills have. It's got the flash of blue and the orange and the throat patch. It's got two treble hooks in it, one in the top, one in the bottom, and then the eyelet in the front. And like I said, it does come with a nail weight that you can use to set the bait. And you push the nail weight into the body. So if it's swimming like this, you would put the weight in the back to tune it, to swim straight. Same way, if it's swimming like this, you put the nail weight in the front to tip the body back. You could also weight it to change the sink rate on it. This is not a floating bait. This is a slow sink. And they come in different types. You get different fast sink, slow sink, neutral. But it does look very realistic. Now, anybody that has fished, I mean, this will catch pike and stuff too, but anybody that has fished around bass and spawn or post spawn, the bluegill is the mortal enemy of bass, because they will come in and rob the eggs right out of the nest. They'll eat the bass fry. So, I mean, I've seen bedded bass that will virulently attack a bluegill bait. Even if he's not hungry, he's going to attack that bait. He's going to attack that fish. They can be pretty aggressive. So this is going to be real good, even in water that you can't see, and in cloudy water where you can't see exactly where a bedded fish is, or you're fishing around bedded fish but you can't see them. Man, you cruise this through over some beds, it's going to get hit. Now, I think this bait is a little too large for smallmouth. A smallmouth bass would still chase this, but he's not going to eat it. But a largemouth bass would eat it. He'll just open his mouth and suck it right in. No problem. It's a little bit large. A large smallmouth would eat that. You get a 4 or 5 pound smallmouth, he's going to be able to eat that. For smallmouth, I prefer to use skinnier baits. actually baits the profile like a whopper plopper here. The skinnier bait is much easier to get in his mouth. But usually if I'm fishing smallmouth, I'll downsize everything. Obviously the smallmouth has a smaller mouth profile than a largemouth. So largemouth can fit anything into his mouth. The smallmouth has it's easier to hook them when you use downsized baits. So I use finesse jigs, or I'll use minnow shaped baits that are skinny, craw baits that are skinny, instead of, you know, big baits like this. But this will really get them aggravated up. Like I said, the bluegill is he's the mortal enemy of a bass on a bed. You can see it's triple jointed. They use like a canvas joint. Same on the back. So when it, you know, it is a good swim action. It doesn't have a bow tail, it's just got a regular tail. So it's extremely lifelike. Extremely lifelike. There's the weight. Actually, the weight is in the packet here. That's the tuning weight. The weight on this bait is 2 ounces. So you need some pretty stiff tackle to, you know, to be able to throw that. Swim bait rod or something like that, or a big heavy flipping stick would be pretty good. And this is a dark gill color for the bluegill. Next one is another 3D scan. This one is it's a casting bait. It's actually a jack pike. Again, it's a 3D scan. This one is an 8-inch, and it is 1 3/4 ounces in weight. Also from Savage Gear. This is a line through system on this. I wanted to get a trout. I probably still will get a trout. Could not find one to purchase. I'm going to have to order it from Tackle Warehouse or something. Now you can see how this is set up. These baits are from Europe. These are pretty popular in Europe, male in Europe, for pike. They don't have muskie there, but, you know, obviously here a muskie will eat this. All pike and muskie are cannibalistic. They will absolutely destroy, especially around spawning time. They will destroy smaller pike. I've seen even pickerel, large pickerel eating small pickerel. I've seen pike eating other pike. They're not too fussy. This is like a Scooby snack for a you know, a good sized pike. What it uses is a line through system. There's a tube molded in the head of the pike, where you can see it comes with a wire trace already in it. And there's a tube that runs down through the fish, and then it runs out the bottom of his throat here. Then they have a hook anchor molded inside the body here, which is really hard. And it also adds weight to the bait. So the trace now runs down through the bait. Then it's got a belly stinger, so it's got a free swinging hook on the back. This hook is anchored into the body, and then it uses an anchor pin in the center of the body to hold the rest of the trace. So the theory behind this is anybody that's fished and caught pike that use like big crankbaits, or, you know, solid crankbaits that are this size, or jerk baits, that the pike can use the weight of the lure to throw the hooks out of his mouth. If he has the bait here and he's thrashing his head around, the weight of the bait will actually pull the hooks out of his mouth and he can get away. Well, with this, when the pike gets caught and he has the hooks in his mouth, what happens is the bait slides up the trace. So now the pike has the hooks in his mouth down here, but the bait is way up the line, and he can't use the weight of the bait to throw the hooks out of his mouth. So he's, you know, much better chance of staying hooked. So that's in theory, at least. Put my hook back in the body here. It also, with the soft baits, of course, pike have very, very sharp teeth. I mean, razor sharp teeth. So it also saves your bait from getting shredded to pieces. Push the anchor pin back in the belly, and there's the stingers ready to go again. Obviously, these traces are going to get bent up and broken. You would have to, you know, make your own traces to re-rig the bait. As you can see, it's very lifelike. It does have a little wide tail. You can see here, it's not like a flat tail like the bluegill was. This is a little the kicker tail, just to put out more vibration. Pike, when they swim, are very they swim very silently because they're designed to sneak up on other fish. So it's kind of like a tuna uses his tail just to propel himself, and the rest of his fins are basically to steer it because he's very aerodynamic. He's like a missile. So they don't put a lot of wake off in the water when they swim, but that kicker tail is to add a little bit more, you know, calling vibration to the lure. That'll probably work pretty well. You can rig this if you're going to fish it on the bottom. You want to fish it in deeper water and you're going to fish it over snags. This is for fishing high water or mid water. You can actually thread the trace up through his head. There's another hole in his head right there. So instead of having the trace rigged on the bottom, you can also rig the trace on the top, and that way you could fish it right, you know, over logs or over structure and not get the hooks caught. The hooks are going to ride on the top. So it's pretty cleverly thought out. Like I said, they have a trout version of this as well. Actually, I have one rigged on my pike rod here. Get this down. This is not a line through. This is a pre-rigged. I have it rigged here on my. I undo that. There it is. This is also Savage Gear. This is a pre-rigged trout. It's not a line through. You can see it has the treble in the belly, and it's got a single hook in the back. I mean, that's also an 8-inch size. Looks just like a brown trout. I mean, that again is a snack for a big bass or a muskie or a pike. You know, no problem for that. This one has a paddle tail on it. It also has a rattle in the tail. So another Scooby snack there for a big fish. But you need pretty stout gear for this. I have this rigged on it. This is a titanium trace. It's 80 pound, and I have it on 80 pound braid. If it gets stuck, I want to get it back. Or if I catch a decent sized fish on it, I do not want them getting away. So I'll throw these lures on pretty heavy gear. But I think that pike is going to be an effective bait. At least we'll have fun fishing with it. Let's see how he goes. I'm gonna finish getting my boat prepped and stuff today, and I'll load up my boat with some gear and go over some checks with that, and we'll do another video on that. But we'll see how these guys work. I like to get you know, test videos on them and see how they swim and how they perform. I'm looking forward to doing that.